It's 2024, and Sonic is succeeding, and I am so happy to see it. As someone who joined a fandom between Sonic Forces and Frontiers, I can tell you that it was almost unbearable back then. Team Sonic Racing died nearly immediately after launch. Movie 1 was nearly dead on arrival, and Sonic Colors Ultimate was a disaster. The lone savior was the Sonic comics. IDW Sonic Run launched in April 2018, and I was very interested to see how it would turn out. And, well, I think the first couple years went swimmingly. The fandom was interested in the plot, and the community was growing well. That is not the case anymore. Sonic has had 2 successful movies, and also 2 games that did quite well. So you have to wonder, what happened? To get it out of the way, I do not dislike these comics. I still purchase them monthly, but it seems the community has truly grown weary of them. The first point I want to discuss is the lacking world. IDW Sonic is a follow-up to Sonic Forces. I question whether this was a choice of the comics creative team or one of Sonic Team. Either way, Sonic Team has been rather strict with this comic, and many of its plot points are a consequence of Forces. The world Forces presented wasn't interesting nor explored in any depth, and the tone it brought was also grim, quite serious, and maybe even formulaic and dull. The Restoration, intentionally or not, is still the main location most stories center around. The book has had Sonic go on a mission with his friends often, and thereby he hasn't really run into much on his own. This can also be attributed to the writers, like Ian Flynn and Evan Stanley, being veterans of the Archie Sonic run, where Sonic was part of a team called the Freedom Fighters. Now, because we don't see much of Sonic just running around and exploring, we consequently don't see much of how the world operates. Part of me thinks it's because of 2 worlds. Sonic Team had decided around 2010 that in-universe, the humans and the animals, like Sonic, live on entirely different planets. This was a pretty wild retcon, and restricted what the comics team could use from the series' history. Sonic Team's flimsiness with ironing out what the 2 worlds idea really entailed made it evident that it had little serious interest in delving into its implications. So, as a byproduct, IDW's ability to world build off the games was hampered, to a certain degree at least. The comic team can't form new ideas independently, and they have already created Restoration HQ and characters like Dr. Starline and Tango. So, it's not fair to put all the blame on 2 worlds, but I imagine they don't want to go overboard with new concepts. 2 worlds has been thrown away recently, but it seems that Sonic Team still isn't willing to let the comic team use humans. Hopefully, they'll ease up on the rules sooner rather than later. Second point, the huge focus on deconstructing Sonic's morals and way of life. Sonic's compassion was first brought up in issue 5, when Sonic chose to spare amnesiac Eggman, and then in issue 12, where he allowed Metal Sonic to go free. That seemed fine to me, but then the comic chose to highlight the consequences of his decisions. Many bad events came from Sonic's choices, and multiple characters call him out for it. But nothing ever actually comes from it. Sonic doesn't pay for his choices at all. It's a bizarre writing choice. Surprisingly, this idea was brought to the forefront again in the stories of Surge and Kit. It caught me off guard, as nowhere in Imposter Syndrome, those 2's debut, had Sonic's choices ever been brought up. But okay, sure, maybe this time they'll actually go somewhere interesting with it. I do think Surge and Sonic's conflict is well thought out. Surge feels the world has no place for her, that no one really cares about her. She rejects Sonic's kindness because of this. Either she destroys everything, or she gets destroyed. This is already quite compelling. But then, the writers decided to add another layer to the conflict. When Surge meets Sonic, she says she was created to end him and his morals. She hates how much he is upheld as a hero, despite allowing so much suffering to occur. Sonic goes on a whole grand speech, explaining how he's willing to give anyone a second chance, just like that, as he believes everyone deserves freedom. He comes across as quite preachy. The purpose of this is to show Sonic as very flawed, and it just feels horrible. Sonic doesn't care about righteousness, he just does what he wants. And he wants to help people. This beat isn't natural, and it doesn't do the characters any favors either. Kit's seemingly set up as someone who needs to learn his own value and grow from being dependent on Surge, but he ends his first story arc with rejecting Sonic. calling him out as someone who only wants to use him. This doesn't contribute to his story. It's just trying to critique Sonic, a character who had no ill intent towards Kit in the first place. This is supposed to be Kit's big moment, but it just doesn't work. He's left just as dependent on Surge as before. I just finished a video about a story that handles a character who has similar issues to Surge and Kit very well. Shameless plug above. Watch that after you finish this video though. And so, when I returned to this story, it really sucked. In summary, IDW Sonic needs to stop trying so hard to criticize Sonic. It's evidently a theme the book is trying to push, but every time they've brought it up, it has always felt forced and just detracts from the narrative. I will say, I don't think Surge or Kit are lost causes just yet, but even so, their reputation might not be entirely salvageable. Belle had a character arc that lasted over a year, and people got tired of it. Even though it had a pretty decent conclusion, many still hated her for derailing the whole story. It was very weird at the time, as characters like Whisper and Dr. Starline started and completed their arcs rapidly, for better and for worse. Whisper and Mimic are still stuck retreading, so I think the writers are not done exploring these ideas. At least it seems Surge and Kit have learned from Belle a bit, as they won't be the consistent focus for over a year, but people might still get tired of it. Personally, I'm open to it, but I don't think their last story ended off on a great note for them to be continuing from. Still, I did like issue 67 quite a bit, even if the fandom didn't. It had Sonic show much empathy to Surge and Kit, yet it didn't really feel wrong in any way. Probably because, for once, he was fairly chill about it. But Surge and Kit's reactions to his compassion felt almost swapped, I'd say. Surge is the one considering things, while Kit doesn't seem to even care. It may be disjointed, but hopefully the story can at least actually move forward. In conclusion, I think the major problems with the book are how the structure and real-world issues hamper the world building, and how the book falls flat when attempting to deconstruct the main character. I think if they address these problems, then it's possible people will start to love the comics again. I hope to see this when IDW Sonic returns with issue 69 in May. Alright, that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching.